Welcome, everyone. This is Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and I'm here with my collaborator and good friend, Tiffany Harelik of Wise Skies Astrology. And we are so excited to be here to discuss the Mars retrograde that is starting officially tomorrow, but we're already seeing stories. So you can put in the chat if you have any comments or questions, and we will answer them. So, hi, Tiffany. How are you?
I'm good, Celeste. How are you?
I'm doing good. Although, okay, so Mars is the planet of action and energy and drive. And as I was getting ready to get out of the bed this morning, I got up early because I have a busy day. And I was like, oh, I feel like I'm ready to go to bed. I even got up and it was like, I'm ready to go to bed. So if you're noticing you're feeling drained energetically, it may be because Mars is slowing down in the slowing your
Skies.
energy
You
down.
know,
How
now
about you? Are you
now that you say that, I did the same thing. I woke up at 5 and I wasn't ready to get up and I went back to sleep, but I went back to sleep hard and had dreams and woke up at 8:30, which is
oh,
I never wake up that late, right? Like I was exhausted when I woke up. So yes, yeah, that sign in the skies of slowing down, sleeping more than maybe we're used to, things like that are definitely showing up for me too.
okay? Yes. Mm. And so, why don't you how do you define retrogrades when you talk to people?
Well, sure. I'm thinking about a retrograde period as an opportunity to pause and pivot and reconsider something. So it's very popular in the astrology language to consider all of the words, redo, reconfigure, reconstruct, right? Retrial, reject, things like this you're going to see in the news. But for at a personal level, right, it's a time of going inside, looking at within, reflecting, and understanding that the delays are actually really helping you. The things that seem to be blocking the path or slowing your momentum down are really just showing you, hey, there's another way. So I was born while Mercury was retrograde, and I really embraced the retrograde cycles. I also teach that the retrograde, depending on the planet, will exhibit what you would think of as the opposite energy. So Mars retrograde in the sky is kind of like a mini Venus energy, which sounds very counterintuitive at first. And so, Jupiter retrograde represents a mini Saturn in the sky energy. So it's like a double Saturn, or in our case that we're talking about, a double Venus influence. And so I've noticed those Venusian aspects come on a little bit thicker, heavier, more noticeable. And so you'll see things like, okay, what are the Venusian topics right now in the media? In my feed, there's a lot of info about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And so there's kind of this double down of Venus type topics, especially around love and money. So that's a couple of ways to think about it. What about you?
Oh, that's so interesting. I've never heard that before. I will have to pay attention. Yeah. I like to think of with when a planet goes retrograde, yes, it gives us the chance to go internal and reevaluate the topics. And for this Mars retrograde, it starts in the sign of Leo, and Leo is ruled by the sun. So that Leo energy, we all have Leo somewhere in our charts, even if we don't have planets there, that about how we get our vital, like how we shine our light, how we let ourselves like glow and radiate in this life is very Leonic. And Mars, how do we take action to do that thing? So that's how I think about. That's one of the things I think about retrogrades. And the energy is it gives us an opportunity to go internal. To use myself as an example, I have Leo in my second house of my resources, my finances, and as Mars rules my midheaven. So for me, this is very much about my career, and I'm taking time to slow down, reevaluate all of my offerings, let go some things that I've got Mars and Venus and Gemini. I need some I
Some
need some
variety. Yeah.
variety. So I'm letting like my monthly workshops go. And I'm going to replace it with something else, but I'm giving myself some time and space to really imagine and talk to my audience about what they want to see. So that's how I'm using this, and it will impact my revenues by the choices I make around my career as I reflect, review, revisit, revise all of these things. So everyone should think about that. Stacy has Leo in the 12th house. So really a beautiful opportunity to think about solitude, self-undoing, sleep hygiene. What are you doing right before you go to bed, Stacy, is what I would be revisiting if I were you. Anything else, Tiffany?
Well,
Okay.
Mars, this is your Scorpio friend chiming in, everyone. So, Mars, right? Mars in the 12th house, transiting the 12th house, that's a very sensual, interesting placement. So, I would be curious if you have some stuff going on with romance or past romantic encounters coming back around. Potentially ones that you don't like, potentially ones that are there for your healing and revisiting. Perhaps you're doing that healing during dream time. I myself, we all have these little resentments and they represent thorns. Okay. So we're walking around with these thorns in our body, and at some point they come out, ready or not. You know what I mean? And so you might have this moment of radical forgiveness for a little anger, resentment that you've been building up that you thought you were going to take with you to the grave, 12th house secrets that you thought that you were going to keep. But maybe it's time that it comes out. I have a couple of, I guess, life experiences where that has happened. And fortunately, it was very well timed and not by me. So I had just come out of a yoga class and I was in my zen and my greatest peace. And I ran into a woman in the grocery store that I had a lot of hurt and pain over, that I felt like was not my fault, but I was the one harboring all of the anger, right? Drinking that poison. But in that moment, because I was so open-hearted, I accidentally, right, Mars retrograde, gave her a big hug. And then it dissolved, and all of this anger and resentment was dissipated in a moment. So Mars transiting through the 12th house can be a very interesting time for that radical forgiveness, or just being aware if you have been in abusive patterns before, that you're breaking those now, that you're not going to be doing that again. Or a time for romance to be reconsidered, that maybe something comes back around that you're excited about. So lots of room for exploration if you want to give us feedback, Stacy.
That is so interesting. Mars rules my 5th house of dating and sex and all of this. And my ex and I have started dating again, and we're doing our. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that advice. Yes. And so when a planet goes retrograde, it's all an optical illusion, and it's in its cycle, it's the closest to it is as it is to Earth. So its energy is intensified, and the degree it stations at to go retrograde or direct is like a branding iron. 30 years of marriage for Stacy. Okay. Has some sandpaper fields. So this is a wonderful time to let go of some of those resentments or recognize them with the Mercury retrograde and then let them go potentially. But
Mars retrograde, yep.
Yeah. Did I say Mercury?
Yeah. But Mercury is retrograde. But
so I might misspeak a couple of times. So Tiffany, you're hearing that, remind me, because this Mercury, the double retrograde, is going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of kind of hilarious things. I've already been seeing them like on social media about, when you say the wrong word and it's just kind of funny. So 6 degrees of Leo is where Mars is stationing to go retrograde. So there's like a branding iron. there. So it's like an intensification of Mars energy. So if you have anything right around there, meaning between 4 to 6, 4 to 7, is that right? 4 to 8 degrees, let's say,
all right,
of Leo. Really pay attention what's going on with you and your those feelings of martial feelings. Mars rules drive, energy. It's the planet of fighting and fornication. It rules accidents, so be extra careful with knives and
guns, weapons, steel,
Oh yeah,
ammo.
yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, your mouth could be a gun too, with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius.
Yeah, your words can. And then you know who gets hurt is you. You just crushed your inner child. You really let yourself down by saying that thing that you wished you hadn't. There are no mistakes. So I did that over the holidays. I said something I wished I hadn't big time. And fortunately, I apologized quickly. And it wasn't, me. I was upset. And those are those little blips that can happen. So I don't expect the other person to immediately get, quickly over it and forgive as radically as we're hoping all of us we will be able to do. But there are those moments. So quick course corrections would also be helpful advice during this time. Not letting something linger, not letting something, especially if it's, on you, right? The thing you were talking about, some things being funny, and one of the funniest things I've seen in my reels lately. Have you guys noticed this? There's some accounts that are redoing the Hallmark movies in these short reels. Have you seen those?
No, you have to send me one.
They are hysterical, and I'm not like a Hallmark movie person, but I know what happens. I mean, of course I've seen them, and they are so funny. It's like these couples that kind of reenact, well, hey, Candy Cane, I'm sorry your car's broken down in the middle of Mistletoe Pines, and you're a big city photographer, and I'm going to help you get back to the big city at exactly with 1 minute. It's very comical, and there's humor, but it's not mean. And that's what I like about it,
Uh-huh. Okay, well, send me one of those so I can see that.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in terms of Stacy talking about her the sandpaper feels going on with the marriage, right? That's great because sandpaper will fine tune and polish. And if you're uncomfortable, you're probably in the right place for growth and getting outside of the comfort zone and making some big changes. A 30-year cycle is a cycle of Saturn. So no doubt you're having a growth experience. And if there's a plateau that you're about to jump up to the next level, as you would say. So, I think that that's great to acknowledge, see, and be ready, to be ready to embrace those moments of change. Mars retrograde, I had some notes, some unfortunate notes about the news, and then I had some ideas on a personal level. Do you want to talk about either one of those?
Yeah, well, people who are watching, you can put where you have Leo in your chart if you know which house, and then Tiffany, why don't you do that? And why don't you do you want to pull up the calendar now and show people
Sure.
about that, or should we do it later?
Let's do it later because I don't have these notes on the calendar.
Okay. So let's talk about some things you've noticed about Mars retrograde.
Let's do it. So first was the redoing the Hallmark movies, the unsuspected pardons, right? Of Hunter Biden. That was very unsuspected, going back on your word and redoing something or undoing something. I thought that was a very Mars retrograde moment. Unfortunately, right in the news was the murder of a celebrity. I would say celebrity figure because Mars and Leo represent celebrities. With the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, and you'll see things like that, like Mars, weapons, guns. Unfortunately. There's a retrial in the news being requested for the murder of Laken Riley. And so this idea that more evidence is coming up to the surface and that a retrial or redoing it has been requested. I also saw the word reject. House Speaker Mike Johnson rejected more Ukraine aid. And so this idea of rejecting retrials, unsuspected pardons, more evidence coming back up. I think that's going to be very common in the media. And so, you know, a side of that is the tendency to get scared about what's going to happen next, you know, what else is going to happen. And so we have to stay out of that and just stay curious about like, that is an interesting Mars retrograde moment. Not only is Mars retrograde right now while we're talking, so is Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, both fire signs. Both appear, like you said, to be going backwards in the sky. Both appear to be running the bases backwards. So if you're watching baseball and you're running the runner's running around the bases, and it's like all of a sudden they're going back the other way, retracing your steps. And so to me, this Sagittarian energy of pulling the arrow back and like having tension in the arrow, that's the tension that kind of Stacey was talking about, perhaps. That tension feeling, and also that feeling of not really knowing where to go or where to aim that energy, that can create a frustration. But I know all of you guys are really good with your workouts, and that you do things, that you go for walks, that you hit yoga, that you lift weights. I know that you're all super on top of it.
How do you know that?
I know it. I just know it. And so I know that, and if you're not, you're going to be, because next year with the eclipses, it's a health year for sure. So if you're not now, you're going to be on your health routines. But when you get to that moment where it's almost like that breaking point of frustration, where you just can't do it anymore, there's a surrender, right? And then what happens after the surrender is you get stronger. You get stronger. And so if you're in a place of surrender, like Celeste and I this morning, not really wanting to get up, rest is not wasted time. Downtime is not wasted time, right? Downtime is the time for healing and when we get stronger. So with all of this tension in the sky, I think the worst thing you could do is just do a bunch of stuff and hit burnout and hit overwhelm. I think the best thing you could do is like see it and say, yeah, I see that there's a bunch of stuff and that I personally am overbooked for the next 2 weeks, right? And it is a sense of frustration. So it's like, how can I rest, recover, and come back with kind of a new vision? A lot of times spirit will, like, I'll get inspired about something, Mars in the first house, and I'll start to go fast. And if I'll just slow down, and the first thing I think, spirit sometimes will say, what about this? And I'm like, that one looks a lot better. Thank you. So this idea that you have this arrow that you got tension, you need to do something, there's momentum. But what if you just dropped the arrow for a minute? What if you stopped fighting? Mars retrograde, Mercury retrograde. In the recovery community, we stopped fighting is a huge piece of personal growth. So what does that mean? We stopped fighting people, places, things, circumstances. We accepted things as they were. We stopped trying to change the other person, and we just surrendered and we found peace, right? So this idea of stopping fighting, I think, is a huge personal and spiritual opportunity to change the momentum, to be a cycle breaker, really. So, okay. So we got,
the struggle. Yeah. And I should give people the degrees for, so with a retrograde, so a planet, it appears to stop and go back to a certain point and then go forward again. So you get 3 coats of paint, or three an area of your chart has 3 wipes over it. And so on October 5th of this year, Mars passed the 17 degrees of Cancer, where it's going back to. So if you have something there, pay attention, this area of your chart. If there's a planet there, there could especially be a story for you. And then tomorrow it stations retrograde at 6 Leo and goes back to 17 Cancer, where it's going to go direct on February 23rd, 2025. And then it's going to go direct and pass 6 Leo again in May 1st of next year. So there can be a 3-part story that you're experiencing throughout this time about how you use your energy. A conflict could come up again. Anything about like accidents, or could be in focus as well. And as we talked about, like how you shine your light, and because the sun rules Leo, and then emotional things and how you keep yourself safe, because the moon rules Cancer. So this is really interesting that it's doing this cycle in the signs that rule the luminaries, the sun, our conscious mind, and the moon, our subconscious mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I mean, to me, having those dates is so helpful, which is why we love the digital astrology calendar. And it's why we love this workbook, which helps you go, look how thick it is. It's so juicy this year. It helps you go through the different dates. So would this be a good time to kind of show?
Yeah, show the digital. So Tiffany creates a digital astrology calendar every year that I am a collaborator and affiliate for, because I love it and I use it all the time. So go ahead and present it so you can see how it how it looks.
Are you seeing that?
No, not yet. You got to put it in you got to hit did you hit the present button?
Here we go. Yes. Oh, I think do you need to allow it into the show?
Oh.
See how it's a third screen down there?
Add to stage. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Oh, I've never done that. Ooh.
All right. So this is just what the calendar looks like, right? This I fast forwarded into January, and you can click on. There's 3 different calendars. One is the planetary. So if I click it off, they'll go away. So here's all the planetary transits or aspects that are going on. And so you can see here on the 23rd, Mercury opposes Mars retrograde. So I added that little R to show us that, yes, Mars is retrograde. And then I give you guys a write-up of my ideas. I also make note that the transit can be felt early, right? And occurs how many times this year? In this case, just once. And so here's some ideas and themes that you can do. I added some fixed star nuance, right? And then I put some resources in here for, if this is stimulating you and you're like, oh yeah, this is making sense. This is resonating. I want to learn more. Here's what's Mars doing in 2025. Like, let's check it out. And that link will take you over to a post on what that is doing. For another, let's choose a happy one. So
that's really important, that date. So Mars opposite Mercury and Mars in opposition, there could be a lot of intense fighting and conflict, verbal, and that's 2 days after the inauguration, right? So that sounds like there's going to be a lot of protesting or conflict or upheaval related to that potentially.
I just randomly picked that. Good notice, Celeste.
Good job. So mark your calendars and notice that Mars transits come in early. So something happening a couple of days before that, maybe when you really feel the Mars opposite Mercury energy. So the 20th on, I'd be paying attention to how you use your words, being more careful driving, because that's like accident energy. Mm-hmm. And Tiffany, you can click off your personal calendar, and I want you to go to tomorrow so we can see what you wrote for Mars retrograde.
Well, it was positive.
So Tiffany is a Sagittarius rising. So Jupiter rules her chart, and she's always uber positive. And I have Saturn on my sun, and I can tell you all the potential pitfalls of this transit. And the things that I've noticed the most, she's talking about Hallmark movies. I've noticed how in Syria, there was this sneak attack. And that's one of the biggest stories of Mars retrograde, because this happened within the last week, where rebel forces are going into Syria, and they overtook Aleppo, the second largest city, and they're making advances. And it would be interesting to see if there's some big action tomorrow where something falls, or by the full moon, if something if Assad, the leader, fell, that would be on board with the energy right now, because we're experiencing. Yesterday was Sun square Saturn, the day the CEO was murdered in New York City. Sun is rules leaders, and Saturn limits, controls, can even kill. And we're seeing all these things about leaders being squeezed, like the biggest, another big story in South Korea. Did you see that, Tiffany? The president declared martial law on Tuesday. And then this is South Korea, a democracy. And then he tried to have his opposition forces arrested, but the parliament said, we're not doing martial law. The people were out in the streets. Yeah, it was rejected. Yeah, and now he's going to be impeached. But anyway, it was like 6 hours of pandemonium in South Korea, which is really representative of this Mars retrograde energy of taking actions. Because with retrogrades, you can have delays, reversals, or the collapse of anything contemplated. And so there was a collapse of what was contemplated by the president of South Korea. Okay.
You know what I'm hoping for? Like, speaking of other countries and talking like the Afghan women that where the girls' schools have been closed and the education has been closed and they've been forced to stay in their homes and all of that. Jupiter's in Gemini still. And so I'm hoping there might be some reversal for them, for the reopening of schools, the reopening of universities. And I'm out of my zone. I'm out of my league here with with world news, but I can talk about interpersonal news. And
well, that's why we're such a good team. Okay. So, I like how you wrote that. Start things without any expectation of finishing them. Be careful about overextending yourself or setting yourself up for burnout. Absolutely. Yeah. That's great advice. And you're so good at that.
Well, and thank you. And thank you for letting me show the contrast with what I did last year versus the amount that is put into it this year. What's another important date that we want to look at?
Oh, look at February 23rd, because that's when Mars goes direct.
So what's going on here? Mars goes direct in Cancer. I'm like, oh my God, did I say that in the thing? Yes, okay. So Mars has been retrograde since December 6th. I like it because it's educational and you don't have to flip back through your ephemeris and figure out, how long has this been going on? So it's moved from 6, right, back Leo, back into 17 Cancer during this retrograde cycle. And so here's a Wayne Dyer quote for us: when the choice is to be right or be kind, always make the choice that brings peace. Mars does not like to be in Cancer. It's considered in fall in Cancer. So the nurturing, security-oriented nature of Cancer really contrasts with Mars's more warlike energy. And so as a result, the influence of Mars is adapted by focusing on protecting emotions and core needs, being the underdog. This is why you'll see a lot of astrologers describe it as passive-aggressive energy, because you've got something to protect, Your core wounds are being exposed. You're trying to hang on to it with that crab-like energy. So what can you do about it? How do we work with this template? You can channel energy into your home and family. Cancer, right? You have extra energy, so maybe it's going into Cancer, the home and family, the nutrition. You can express your emotions constructively, maybe with a spiritual leader through journaling, as opposed to just out there on social media. You can help other people take action to volunteer. Maybe you're doing something that is like for women and children that have been abused. You could be on theme with it, is I guess my point. So take a kitchen knife skills class. That was interesting, creative thought, past Tiffany. So
I love that.
So I give you yeah.
So why don't you drop the link for people? We're doing a special deal. Explain to them what the deal is for if they get the calendar and the workbook.
Yes. So let me get out of here. Let me stop my.
So you can see there is so much information about the transits that will help you through 2025, which is going to be bonkers. Okay. It's such a big year, where we start off with this Mars retrograde, and then Venus is going to go retrograde and Mercury is going to go retrograde. So the year really has a lot of slow and back and forth energy until mid-April. And then it's like, boom, we'll feel like we've been shot out of a cannon because Neptune's going to change signs and go into Aries, fiery Aries. And then Saturn's going into fiery Aries. And then Uranus is going into Gemini, airy Gemini. So there's going to be like energy of like these waves, these Aries waves with Neptune and Aries of like really people really being passionate and fiery about their beliefs, but then reaching limits and being blocked. It's going to be just so much that this calendar will really help you stay present and recognize these shifts that are going on with people and yourself. And especially if you have kids, it's going to be really interesting to see how this shows up for people with kids.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not, the URL isn't shortening, but let me go ahead and connect your YouTube to join the live chat. Okay, so I feel like there's a connection problem with my ability to put it in the comments.
Oh, well, just email me.
Okay.
Email it to me and I'll put it in.
Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tiffany, I collaborate with Tiffany with the calendar every year, and we're going to give you the link in case you want to purchase it because it's so helpful.
What we have is a combo deal. So we're doing $30 off for the digital calendar and the workbook. So $30 off that combo if you want both of them, or if you only want the digital calendar, we can use your code, Celeste.
Okay, I'll put. Okay. Did you email me?
I did. Is it going through? I had a situation yesterday where my medical records hadn't gone through to my doctor's office. And so they had no emails that were working at all. And this idea of blood tests and surgeries are all very Mars, right? And the idea that the emails aren't going through is all very Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde, looking back over old surgery notes and old blood tests and things like this. So let me know that you got it.
I didn't.
You did not?
Mm-mm.
It says sent. It's combo deal link. Perfect. Okay, well, let me try it from the other email. I'm receiving lots of...
So this is Mercury retrograde, Mercury delays. So communications are delayed. And another story that brings, and there's stories that bring together both the Mercury and Mars double retrograde. So one was this woman, I think on Thanksgiving Day or right around there, she got on a flight. She snuck on a flight to Paris from New York City. So without a boarding pass. So she was like a stowaway on this transatlantic flight. Mercury rules transportation. And then they figured out she was on the plane before they landed and they confronted her. And she got really angry. And there was a day they tried to send her back because she's trying to get asylum in France. And they're like, we don't want you. Go back. And she's actually a Russian national. So there's like 3 countries involved in this whole story. But they tried to send her back to the US. And she got she's 57. She fought the people. So they took her off the plane. So that's Mars. She's very angry. She doesn't want to come back. She illegally snuck on this plane. But anyway, yesterday they were able to get her back. She was escorted by French security. Mars, Mars rules these type of people to the United States. And now she's going to face charges for what she's done.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay. I was able to private chat, but not publicly comment. So I put it in there as well.
Okay.
So
I'll put this in here. You can get this combo deal where you show the workbook, Tiffany.
Yep. This workbook. And what's cool about it is in the beginning, it gives you an overview of the 2025 astrology. So if you watched our predictions workshop that we did with our friend Sarah El Harar, the Astro Auntie, and you didn't take notes, like here's a big, huge chunk of book where there's notes. Or let's say that you're new to astrology and you just want to know what your forecast is for the year. You can go to your sun sign and read your moon sign as well and get a vibe for it. So that's in there. And then once you get to the numerology is in there too, and how to work with the numerology. But for when you get to the specific months, right, there's a little bit of a workbook option for those of you that are really studying your chart or getting to know it more intimately. I've got the sun and where it's going to be, so you can find it. And then I have prompts for you to explore what that might mean for you during January as the sun transits what part of your chart. The new moon, what day it is and where it is, and notes, and then through all of the planets, right? So all of the planets have this little note section, but it's not overwhelming if you're brand new to astrology. It's just enough to get you going if you're kind of astro curious and know enough to get you into trouble. There's also sections to write about your intentions or goals for the month, and then there's notes for each week. So if you're more of a tangible person, get this. And then if you're more of I need to check my calendar quickly so I know what day to make appointments or things like this, then the digital version is awesome. So yeah. So I'm really excited. I think this is one of the better ones that I've put out. I've had a lot of feedback over the years, and I love seeing the different journals that come out. And I know that people get really loyal to a brand. And so I really appreciate you guys that have been buying the Wise Guys digital calendar for the last 7 years, 8 years. This is a physical representation of it. And it just shows you the unique energetic blueprint of 2025. So I hope you guys enjoy it and gift it to your people. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so there's the code in the link, and I'll put it in the show notes for $30 discount if you buy both. And then, well, there's just a link you go to, but I also put my code in. If you want just the calendar, you get $10 off. And if you want just the workbook, you get $5 off. So there's all these links in here, but it's really good. It's a really phenomenal tool. Absolutely. Oh, Jordy has Leo in an empty 9th house. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, because that's where my 9th house is. My 9th house is in Leo, and I have the North Node there. And so for me, right, that's a sign of publishing, going back over my work and publishing and offering things in a new way, the same content repurposed in a new way. The 9th house represents our spiritual side, where we want to grow, where we want to expand. So it could be that, Jordy, you're going through a time of like a reconsideration with your spiritual values or principles. It could be a time like I use the Duolingo app. Sorry. And Duolingo, I'm not an affiliate with it, but I should be because I recommend it all the time. It's an app, and it's kind of gamified learning foreign languages. So the 9th house rules foreign languages. And so for me personally, I'm going back in. I'm really efficient with my Spanish, but I'm learning Russian. And this is the first time that I've understood it. So it's like, oh, okay, there's a relief with relearning old languages. I'm picking up music again. So I've been practicing my piano every day for about 30 minutes, which is revisiting something from my childhood. So music, I joined a different church, a new church. So going back into my spiritual side. So religion, philosophy, music, your foreign languages, connecting with foreign countries. It could be a time when, hey, this reaches a new market overseas, right? So there's ways that you could look at this, even though you don't have planets there, you still have activity and action there that is offering a reconsideration, and it can be really positive. Me learning music, me connecting with a spiritual family, me learning languages that are very, very foreign to me. This idea of traveling less, I would say, right? So Mars retrograde going through the ninth house of long travels, long journeys. I don't have trips overseas planned during this time, really. I have a trip planned about 7 hours away. I'm going to drive. I'm not worried about it. But I would say, like, when's the most optimal time to plan a spiritual pilgrimage overseas? It's probably not during Mars retrograde in Leo. So that was a big ramble. Did I help? Do you have ideas too?
Oh, I think that's great. So yeah, so Veta, if you are, I hope I said that right. If you are going overseas with Mars retrograde in your ninth house, it doesn't even have to be overseas, just a long way from home. Yeah. Just be aware there may be delays or hiccups. Make sure you have everything packed. Double check. I recommend for everyone going forward, because I think a big story next year is going to be delays due to storms or winds or all sorts of things. Always have travel insurance in case you have to cancel your trips last minute. And especially if you have Mars retrograde in the ninth house, that suggests there could be some kind of problem with a ninth house topic, which includes long distance travel. So it's not, doesn't mean your trip's going to be awful, but there may be a little bit of a delay. So leave the house early if you have to go to the airport, kind of thing.
And that's like a really good example of where it's not about the trip. It's not about the insert comment. You might have booked that whole thing, and the whole purpose was for you to sit next to some other person, shoulder to shoulder in the airport, to discuss a topic that was radically healing for both of you, and it had nothing to do with the trip. And you over here in your human mind got so disappointed and upset that you didn't go on the trip that you forgot that the miracle happened right here, shoulder to shoulder in the airport. So this idea of losing expectations is very hard for me. I have a lot of fixed energy, and this has probably been 20 years ago, but one of my really wise yoga teachers, but the first class I took from her, I've had surgery in both of my feet, and so I can't move my big toe. Like there's no flexibility. It's like having a tight pair of jeans and you can't bend over. It's just not going to do that. So there are poses that I want to do that I can't do. And it feels frustrating because I want it because I have an expectation, right? And so after class, I asked her, well, what can I do to get this loosened up? And I'm thinking she's going to have some cool yoga move where I'm going to get to practice or loosen the fascia. And she goes, it sounds like you have an expectation. And that's all she said. I was like, boom, like the yoga dropped. And ever since then, right, it has been helpful, because ever since then, when I do have an expectation, it's more obvious to me that there are some things that I cannot do, and the frustration is only felt by my expectation that I should be able to do them. So this idea that if your travel plans get delayed, well, where was the expectation? Was it in making the journey and checking off the box and making the trip happen? Or was it that you said yes to something, and that's how spirit got you shoulder to shoulder with this person in the airport to have an important spiritual conversation, right? That's why it's important to know who is your employer. If spirit is your employer and you're here being of service, then you're happy with anything. The plans change, great, no problem, because you're just there to be of service anyway. So hopefully that's useful.
I love that thought process. Rather than being angry, reframing how you're experiencing it. And Jordy says that they did start relearning Spanish and bought a ton of books on financial literacy. Ah, yeah. Jordy has the Leo in the ninth house, and I said, Veta.
Yeah.
Mercury retrograde. So Jordy's doing the same. And Jordy said, great advice. So Tiffany, your wisdom is very welcome. That was really helpful about it. So yeah, you probably are already doing your Mars retrograde experience where you're going over something or reconsidering something about how where Leo is in your chart. And yeah, you're probably already experiencing this. But the thing to be mindful of is examine what's going on in the world related to these topics. Oh, there was something so funny I saw. This is another thing that brings together the Mercury and Mars retrogrades. So there was this reel on Instagram where this woman comes across the street and gets into this guy's car, and he's like, "Here is my sister," and they kiss on the lips. And then it's about, he's promoting this ear thing where he has one of the, they're like
yeah, yeah,
and he's talking in English, and then it translates into Spanish so that she can understand it. And this was one of our predictions for Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, that we're going to be able, two people speaking different languages, but they understand each other right away.
yeah.
But in the comments, everybody was like, what does sister mean in Cuba? And people were all joking about like that. Nobody's talking about the earbuds, about,
Right.
oh, isn't that cool? One person talks and the other person hears it in the other language, which, you know, the mercurial communication. Everyone's talking about the Mars, wanting to know why this man is kissing his sister on the lips like that.
They got all tangled up at if the language was correct or not, right? All the Virgo placements are like, that's wrong. You know? Yeah. I saw that ad the other day, and that is so wild, and it was pretty cheap. Like, it's almost worth ordering just to see if it even works. Or the one that I saw was relatively inexpensive for what I thought, you know, could be. Yeah. Is it okay if I share?
You go to a different country and you could, yeah.
Can I share my screen one more time, Celeste?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am sharing the calendar share, and if you'll add it again to the program. One thing I wanted to tell you guys is that in addition to the planetary aspects, the lunations are there as well. And so the second calendar that you'll get is this, and you can make it any color you want, but it's the moon phases. And so you'll be able to click in and see what moon phase it is, what degree it is, an interpretation that you can take or leave. I love to include the Sabian symbols in there. Look at that, 2 men playing chess, how appropriate for mid-February. And then all of the dates for the entire lunar family cycle, as well as keynotes for the sign that it's in. Okay, so that's a lot. And then another cool thing that happened this year, where are you? The moon void of course periods. I used to just say the moon's void of course, you're feeling nebulous, go slow, not the best time to make decisions, plans, hard meetings where you really have to focus and remember stuff, right? But last year, our colleague Jody Forrest suggested that I add the last aspect of the moon before going void of course, because as many of you are aware, that sets the tone for that void of course period. And so I picked a challenging one here. So the last aspect the moon makes before it turns void, right? In this situation, it's going to square Neptune. Okay, so I'm saying don't read too much into emotions and reactions. Things aren't what they seem. Sensitivities are really high, right? Okay, and so this part is going to give you a flavor for what's going on. And then I'm just reminding us, once the moon goes void, things feel really spacey. So the moon void can be a couple of minutes. It can be several hours. It can be all day. So you can see this one is a little bit shorter, but it's more positive. So there's the umbrella and the moon together, right? That's showing you.
So don't negotiate an important contract while the moon is void, of course, and squaring Neptune.
Right?
Because people are going to misunderstand each other. Mm-hmm. More likely. There's
resources. So if you're like, oh, I'm really into this new moon and I want to see more about it, there's your link. Here's Venus retrograde in Aries. And so Venus and Mars will both be retrograde in Aries next spring. And so that can be a confusing time, what to do, what not to do. Whoops. Right. And then I have a playlist for you here. So it's a little bit different than just a resource, but oh, I want to listen to some Venus retrograde songs. One of our colleagues has a Venus reset program that I offer in there as a link. Anyways, the first of the month, I show you the numerology. So next year, I'll say, is a 9-year. So numerology breaks down life into 9-year cycles. And 2025 is a 9-year. So it's a culmination, it's an integration, it's a endings and beginnings. It's starting things new, but not after much earned wisdom has been processed. And so that's the year. But then each month has its own numerology flavor. So March is a 3-month, which is more creative, in a 9-year. And so this could be a month when you are wanting to get out, when you are wanting to attend events, but things might not go as planned. But if you do feel like you're a little bit more charismatic and out there and wanting to be in the mix and all of that, you might run into people or have conversations or network with people that haven't been part of your life for a long time that are coming back into focus. And so, yeah, I just wanted to show you that there was more than just the planets before we got off. And when you download it, let's see, when you download it, there's information and video on each system. So I'm a Gmail person, a Google Calendar person, but there are many other calendar systems. So if you're an Android person, we got you. You know, if you're downloading to Windows, we got you. And the calendar changes with you as you go to a different time zone. So you don't have to reconfigure or wonder. It's going to change with you as you're traveling. So those are a couple of frequently asked questions I wanted to throw in there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm so excited to see every year Tiffany makes it better and better and better. So remember, the links are in here in the comments, and I'll put them in the bottom. But I think it's a great thing to do is just observe this Mars retrograde. Mm-hmm. And something else that I want to make sure I mention that's interesting about it. So, okay, Mercury's already retrograde. Mars official starts tomorrow. And then on Saturday, Neptune goes direct. So Neptune is the planet of illusions and delusions and confusion. It rules the oceans and waterways. So we may be seeing conflict or action on the seas or water or over water. You may be seeing people fighting about water or some kind of liquid or alcohol. Bar fights could be something that's going on. Yeah. So notice how those two come together, Mars and Neptune. Yeah.
Feet and head, right? So Neptune, feet, head, Mars. I told Celeste before we started, I have had this like strange pain behind my ear, very sensitive to touch. I don't feel like I have an ear infection, but something is going on here. And if you Google that, like it'll take you down a bunny hole, which is what I did at 5 this morning. But this idea that like some kind of head or feet thing is going on, right? It'll give you a health clue. When stuff sparks up for you physically or emotionally, it's for the purpose of paying attention and healing it. So we don't want to suppress anything. I had like all the ladies at Pilates were talking about their feet, their bunion surgery, things like this. And so it makes sense with the Neptune retrograde or Neptune going direct. And
Pisces.
In Pisces, right? In Pisces.
Which is about the feet, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just be extra careful around water. I've seen already some people like at the beach getting hit with tremendous waves because when a planet changes signs, its energy is intensified.
That is such a good point. And another awful, hilarious account to follow we'll show you lots of hilarious moments where the waves really cause havoc with people and nobody's injured. It's just kind of a funny account. But the idea here that there's something going on, Mars retrograde, right, with Neptune and Pisces direct. I think that idea about water, news about being careful in the water, drownings. Like I saw right before we got on, I saw a woman who she had taken her life jacket off to take a selfie on a jet ski. And the life jacket floated away and it had her keys to start the freaking jet ski on it. And so she's here, her life jacket with the keys is over here, her house is over there, her phone is here, and she's in a complete panic about it. And so things like that, you want to be extra special safe with water and with explosions, right? With the underground things that are happening with fire, like the water volcanoes, things like this. So good point, Celeste. Well done.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm going to put the link to the calendar, the combo link and everything, so that you have it. I'll update my website too. So that
Awesome. I'm going to put it in my newsletter too.
Okay, great. Well, have a beautiful rest of the day, everyone, and just observe all the things. And it's just, this gives us an opportunity to understand Leo energy better, Martial energy better, and use ourselves, slow down and reflect with what's going on in the collective. Okay, have a beautiful day, everyone.